Welcome to Echelon Orchid, and welcoming them back is the Ninja, Dr. Jason Pittman. Ninja, what's going on, sir?
Having a great afternoon, Dr. Danford. How are you?
Yeah, well, I am fan-dan-tabulous.
There you go. I like that. It's always good to be great.
It is, it is. I find myself, and I don't know if I've talked about it on the show or not, but I talk about it quite often, where if, anytime I ask them how they're doing and they're like, oh, good or fine, I'm like, well, what's it going to take to be amazing?
Hmm.
And I find myself checking myself that if I don't say like I'm great or amazing, I kind of go, well, wait a minute. What is it going to take for me to be amazing? Haven't quite figured it out yet, but that's the goal.
Well, look, man, we're human, and so it's always possible to have an off day. I think it's important to be able to differentiate between am I just having an off day, or is there something that's around me or in me mentally uh, that's leading me to not have the best day that I possibly could and act accordingly.
What's interesting about that, which gets into kind of what we're talking about, when I go, hey, what am I not having a great day? I try to really look back to determine, well, what's the blind spot that I'm missing that's preventing me from having a great day? And I started to wonder as I was coming up with this topic. I wonder how many people actually check that. How often are they checking their own blind spots?
I actually think that in thinking about this discussion and reviewing some of the material and reflecting and so forth and so on, I think it's actually one of the, if not the, defining thing between good and great. I think some of the things we're going to talk about are the things that people do that we might look to as examples of how we want to live our lives and achieve our own personal levels of greatness. Um, I think it's fair to say that the majority of people don't engage in any or more than one of these activities on a semi regular basis. Let's say, you know, more than 2 or 3 times a week.
I don't even know that people are doing it. I would say most people are likely not looking at their blind spots even once a month.
Yeah, yeah. Probably the average human being doesn't do it rarely, if any.
Yeah, I think we get caught up in our routines, and because of that, we develop even more blind spots, or even more so, we start to overuse our strengths and then compensate. And that's what leads to frustration.
Hmm. Right.
If you really value education, but you are pushing education on everyone, yet it seems like what they're getting is education for education's sake, not purposeful learning. It can turn them off, and then you get frustrated because you don't feel like the people that are around you are taking that seriously.
Mrs. Pittman and I were having a related but tangential conversation a couple nights ago. We were talking about some things that we need to retool in our cohabitated life to orient ourselves more towards our goals. And we were having this discussion about how to go about planning some of those things. And I made the comment that, sometimes I think it may come across like I just exist in pure chaos all the time. And in fact, it's the exact opposite. I have a pretty good idea of where I'm headed. I just don't have a need to plan it out in excruciating detail. And part of that's confidence. Part of that is because of things like we're going to talk about today, I suspect, that I learned how to rely on to navigate life's uncertainties, let's say.
Well, that comes back, I really believe, because you've set goals. And the goal is adaptable to the strategy as to how you're going to achieve the goal. And so it doesn't make it as important as to the how you did it, just that it got accomplished within a time frame that might also be adaptable because other priorities could come up. You might start to get new information and new data, which causes you to pivot, and then you got to reassess. And there's nothing wrong with that. You still have your goals.
See, and I think that's what some of the tools, tips, and techniques, let's call them, practices that are in the material um, really do. And I think that's what prevents the average person from being great on a daily basis. Because in my observation, you need enough structure so that you aren't so subject to extraneous variables, uncertainty, blind spots. But if you have too much structure, I think that's where that leads people to believe that they're not subject to blind spots because they're only playing to strength.
Well, that gets right back into your over relying on your strengths. And because of
Exactly.
that, you're creating those blind spots for things that you're not taking into consideration. It doesn't necessarily mean it's a weakness, but you can turn your blind spots when you start to recognize them. I wouldn't say into like a core strength, but that awareness can become very powerful. Knowing what
Yeah,
you're
like,
not, knowing what you don't want to gravitate towards can be very, very powerful.
well, because wouldn't you agree that of the total set of blind spots, there's a part of that set that I want to make sure that I'm aware of so that I deal with them ahead of time so they don't impede my ability to maximally affect my power and strength. Then there's the set of blind spots that I need to periodically work on to develop so that when they come up, they're not so disruptive. And then there's another set where that's just a blind spot, and I got covered for that through a colleague, a teammate, a life partner, a tool, a technology, and I don't ever have to think about it again.
Yeah, very much so. I was just bringing up, so, when some of the things when people talk about strength building, there is the Clifton Strengths, which you can, go to gallup.com, find it out. It's not that expensive when it comes to this thing. It takes about 45 minutes and it costs about $50. And they say there's 34. And so for me, which is actually quite funny, I mean, in a way, I mean, not funny, haha, but my bottom five, and this is one of the things I find really interesting, and maybe it's just because I have always had to be aware of it, but my number 34, like the thing that I don't tend to be the most on, is empathy.
Oh, okay.
But I find myself, I feel like I'm very empathetic to people's needs and desires and try to put them in a place to succeed. Um, but maybe that's just because I've become aware that as I am, because my number two strength is achiever. And if you're constantly trying to get that, achievement, then, and you don't have empathy, then you're not going to be able to get the team to, kind of be motivated around you. You're not going to be able to rally the troops up and get things done. So perhaps, and I don't know, I just did this last night to kind of see what was going to happen, but I'm trying to fit. It was like, oh, well, here it is. And it doesn't mean like things don't kind of ebbs and flow, but it's probably no surprise that my first one is a learner, second is achiever, 3 is ideation, 4 is individualization, which is an interesting one because while you try to treat everyone equally, I look for what's unique about them and try to get, this is that diversity of thought. I want uniqueness in the teams because I know that that's extremely powerful. And then strategic. Those are my top 5, and it's really, there's a piece in here that when I was talking with the missus, she always says this one thing quite a bit about me. Let's see. Let's see if I can find it. Maybe it was under. Well, I don't know. Well, while I'm looking for it, go ahead and get to your next one. What's your next point here?
Well, okay, so I'll actually call out something that I find of personal benefit in this discussion of blind spots, discovering them, figuring out what category they fit into, that I don't often find in this context. It's in a lot of other contexts. And that's some form of personal journaling, of recording your activities, thoughts, even your mood. Um, we've talked a lot about using technology to track at least our physiological state and how that ebbs and flows. That's interesting to me, that as much as journaling as a personal development mechanism is discussed in the literature, it didn't seem to appear a lot, if at all, in the context of blind spot.
Well, it's very there are people that definitely focus on the present and past, which in a way is the journaling aspect. So that way you can analyze it to inform your future decisions. It's just all of us have different pieces. And
Right.
so here's that one. So this one is under ideation. You're
Oh,
you're fascinated by ideas is the kind of how you thrive. You're fascinated by ideas. You're able to find connections between seemingly disparate phenomena. Now, there's one part in here as they giving you all your little different things. Um, Driven by your talents, you generate ideas quickly. You draw clever linkages between facts, events, people's problems, or solutions. You present others with numerous options at a pace some find dizzying. Your innovative thinking tends to foster ongoing dialogue between and among the group's participants. I just go, well, it's got to keep up, bro. Well, and actually I think it has a lot to do with probably with being working in government and cybersecurity and the IC aspects. You've got to assimilate a lot of information. The world is moving fast,
yeah.
so you've also got to move fast. Um, do you do you spend well? How much time, if any, do you spend reading what you've journaled?
Um, I have a general answer, and the specific answer might be a little wonky, but every night or morning, depending on what cycle I'm on in terms of writing things down. Because when I write things down for the next day or for the next week, I look at the previous day or the previous week. So that's always either the night before or the morning first thing. Um, that's the general answer. The specific answers that usually takes the weekly uh, periods are on Sundays for me, and that usually takes about an hour to do, 45 minutes. The daily ones are maybe 15, 20 minutes every day, um, including Sunday, because I need to do Sunday, either Saturday night or Sunday morning before I do everything. And that includes doing the week from Sunday to Saturday. So I don't know, man. That's somewhere around 5, 6 hours a week, probably.
Mm-hmm. I don't I don't know that I spend much time looking at anything that I've journaled.
Hmm.
I write it down, kind of just um, in a way, and then and I use Evernote in order to be able to really um, catalog my thoughts. I try to put certain keywords, and hopefully I'm consistent with keywords. Who knows, But this way, when I want to look back, I can quickly search it.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I don't know that I spend much time reflecting back on it, except when all of a sudden I'm like, this seems familiar, and I do at that point go back. So it's kind of like my own little internal Google database for my own ideas. But since I know how to find them, I don't necessarily spend much time reflecting on them.
Now, I will say this though. Apart from that, I spend maybe what I'm, to be fair, might describe as an inordinate amount of time thinking about what I think.
Hmm.
Like, why did I think that? I primarily, I mean, I have a lot of dialogue with people around. Well, why would you think? what you thought, or why do other people think this? I wonder what goes through people's minds, and I have that dialogue with myself a lot, like a lot.
That I do quite often.
Yeah.
That's on a definitely a daily basis.
Hmm.
Sometimes multiple times a day. It just depends, because we've talked about like how much time do you spend thinking, and I easily spend on a daily basis 3 hours just thinking. Now it's not 3 hours continuous,
Right. Right.
but I'm definitely spending significant time thinking. Um, Probably my no less than 20 minutes continuous. That's probably my minimum amount of time is 20 minutes.
Yeah, and that's really the spirit of what ideation is as a psychological construct. Um, and what I find interesting about blind spots, even though I don't know that I always think about what I'm thinking about as blind spot thinking or considering blind spots, is I've noticed when you told me this is what you wanted to talk about, I was thinking about instances of it like in the real world, like applied blind spot thinking, right? And it seems to me, tell me if you agree or disagree, and maybe your audience can chime in, that the people that think about blind spots, let's say more often than not, are the type of people that can hold dissimilar ideas at the same time. And so, like, here's an example of what I mean. I can have empathy for somebody's situation, but not want to engage in it. I can dislike somebody as a human being, but still help them in some way. Right? Those are conflicting ideas that can be held at the same time. And I think that takes a level of intellectual maturity to achieve, because it's hard. It's much easier to be convinced that what you think is right and there's no reason to change it.
Well, I think that's really part of that aspect of blind spots. And so one of those pro tips that I'll give the audience out there, if you want to see if you have any blind spots, quite simply, just change your morning routine.
Yeah,
Right?
right.
That's it. Just change your routines. Our blind spots happen because we get comfortable with where we are in life, where we are with our routines, where we are with our people. Go do something you may not normally do. Perhaps it would be, you know, uh, you've never done a yoga class, go do yoga. You've never done a martial art, go try jujitsu. Just, wind up, spice it up a little bit, change it up. Um,
Yeah, one of the best social experiments, self-social experiments I've ever done in this way. Do you remember when I started at High Point University? I told you and TK that I was going to, at least for 30 days, do the exact opposite of whatever I thought I should do. And man, that worked amazingly. Like, it actually turned out that doing the opposite of what I think ends up with better results. So I still do it.
yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Right? And even if you wind up, wanting to change that again later, perfect. It winds up being very productive, because in a way you've like, who better to ask advice of than your future self,
Hmm. Right.
right? And so in many ways that's what you've done. All right, I'm going to change this up, and now you can go, all right, well, what do I like or dislike about this?
Yeah. And actually, I think that's a great pro tip for people, what you just said there. If you develop, because this is another trait I've noticed in people that conduct these exercises, again, more often than not, is that they have the ability to hold a true inner dialogue. Like, I talk to myself a lot, not always aloud, and it's almost always question answer based. And it seems to me that you do this, and you do it in a way where you say, "Hey, future self, if I do this, what's that going to do to you?" And it creates this causal relationship between the present and the future. And if you're orienting yourself towards a future aim, which you ought to be, that's, I think, a really neat way to continually align or realign yourself towards that aim, and along the way discover these blind spots.
I do it often.
Yeah.
I definitely reflect back on those kind of things and asking myself these questions, and then in a way, having that internal argument. And I don't mean like, I'm talking about the logical argument of what is going on, because at those moments is when I'm trying to be as honest with myself as I believe I can be, right? I think we are very good, us humans are very good at lying to ourselves.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, it's a fabulous byproduct of having consciousness.
Yeah.
Because I don't think dogs lie to themselves. I
No,
think they're perfectly comfortable with what they are.
absolutely. And I think we lie to ourselves quite often. So I like to believe that I'm not lying to myself. So I try to like be truly honest. And maybe in some ways that's a big part of why I feel like I have imposter syndrome, because I'm like, all right, no, you suck, you're horrible. And this is, I think we talked about a little while ago, and actually the executive coaching certification that I'm training for right now is under positive intelligence. And they have this thing where, everyone has what they call saboteurs.
Mm-hmm.
And your saboteurs are different for everyone except for one, and it's called the judge. Everyone has the judge. And the judge is like the worst part of you. Think of like, going back to Carl Jung's shadow. Like that's the thing that's constantly telling me, no good, you suck, you didn't do this right. Everyone's, making fun of you, whatever it might be. It's that constant thing on me. And how do you neutralize that? And Shirzad, working with a bunch of neuroscience, folks, and taking into account other different things. Basically, they call them PQ reps. And you get into that, and it's really about getting your sensories engaged, because it does things. And I find myself doing it, and it definitely helps when I remember to do it. That's because it's always that moment. It's how do you get calm back down and not think of it that way. But when you are, when I'm in those moments with myself and trying to be very honest, because if I'm honest, then I can, and that means not being overly critical, because that's also a lie, and not being overly positive, because that's also a lie. Like sugarcoating something is a lie. So don't sugarcoat it. I don't want to sugarcoat it with myself. So when I'm in that moment of being honest with myself, then I can create the goals or the plan to achieve those goals, and or execute whatever it happens to be. But only when I'm in that honest moment. I feel like I've taken a look at the blind spots, at least the best I could, and I'm building on my strength and using my strength in order to achieve my goals.
Yeah, because wouldn't you agree? There, there's two ways to articulate the same idea. One of which is no plan. One of which I think innately leads you to have a plan, and that's the difference between telling myself I suck versus I could have done better. Saying I suck or that sucks or you suck isn't helpful. Like it doesn't like it's words. It means something, but it's so tilted towards negativity that there's nothing you can do with that. Okay, I suck. What do you want me to do about it? There's no plan. Whereas if you came to me and said, "Hey, Jason, I think you could have done better with X," that to me instantly necessitates if you do A, B, and C.
Like if you had fed that caterpillar, it wouldn't have left.
Yeah. Hey, man, spring cleaning.
Well,
It doesn't take me 6 years to grow one.
no, definitely doesn't take me that very long either. My problem is like I keep messing up the curl aspect, and then I'm like, all right, cut that off, re-go. Eventually I'll get it. Right?
Waxing it and curling it is a chore, dude. I did that for a while too.
Hey, and now that masks are going back out of style again, I can get back to it. Like it was like no, like for shoot, like I started growing this like right before COVID, and then COVID happened. Everyone we got to wear a mask. I'm like, I'm not gonna put the wax on when I got this mask. I mean, because then the mask gets on there and it's all messed up. All of a sudden, it's like crooked, and I'm like,
Yep.
no.
Yep.
But actually, so here's another thing, and I think we do this because we check in with each other quite often about, hey, what do you think of this? And I think more people should probably do this as well, and that's get a 360 view of themselves from their peers, their subordinates, their managers, whatever it might be. And the hard part, and I would caution everyone when they go to do this, do not take it personal. It doesn't mean they're right. It means just consider what's being said, because everyone has a viewpoint. You're going to be sending this out, and there's going to be people that don't like you, and there's going to be people that are your biggest fans. Those are the extremes. I don't want to know. I mean, I kind of want to know, but I don't really know, because likely both of those aren't true. I want to kind of focus on what are people right here saying? And is there a theme that I might not have thought of?
Well, I'll tell you, something dawned on me years and years and years ago, particularly around spoken and even more so written word, that the writer or speaker actually isn't transmitting emotion. The words are empty. And the beauty of words and language is that they're empty, and they can only be empty when they're created, because the purpose in their creation is for you, the receiver, to fill them with your emotion. And this is why we have fiction. This is why we have poetry. This is why we have plays and movies. The creator doesn't inject emotion into the written word, the spoken word. The receiver does. And that's a hard twist, because we want the responsibility and the burden to be on the person that created it, because when we don't like it, it's their fault, not ours. But the truth of the matter is, this is my opinion, that it's actually us, the receivers, that are injecting emotion into it, and it's our emotion, right? And it's just like you were saying, if you remember, the Stoics would say, well, the way to remember is to not act immediately. Very few things in life require immediate action. There's nothing wrong with taking a breath. There's nothing wrong with going to sleep and dealing with it the next day. And I think those are the things that are easier in principle, not always in practice, but I think so, than trying to remember to do something in the moment. In the moment, it's the moment. Let it be. I don't know. I don't know what you think about that, but.
Well, I think it's very true. Not everything requires immediate action. And you don't, well, I will slightly alter that. In that not everything requires immediate, what's the right word? Well, because I'm trying to think what the right word would be, but basically choosing to not take action is also an action. So sure. Because you're not ignoring it, you're choosing to wait for whatever time period. So it's not, so you don't need to take, I don't know what's the word, action word I'm looking for here, but kinetic action? Kinetic action,
yeah,
maybe?
Yeah, right. What you're saying is by default, the action is no action.
Right.
And you give yourself that buffer space or that standoff space to allow things to settle and react to it when you're prepared to.
Right. In terms of that, actual, kinetic like, actions where I'm going to act rather than choosing not to act, which is, I think more people need to do that. And I definitely, well, I will caution people on this piece to that. When you're choosing not to act, you should also choose a time frame of when you're going to act by. Otherwise, it can look as if you're ignoring it, and that can cause more problems. So pick a deadline, because whenever you have to take an action, the same amount of energy is expended. Doesn't matter really how big or how small. So you don't want to leave those decisions to fester. So what I like to say is, if the action, so to speak, is of little consequence, just make the decision and move on. Get rid of it, because it's not like, what are you going to eat for dinner tonight? Honestly, I just don't care. Like, I can tell you what I'm not going to eat for dinner tonight. That's probably the better things, and that's the kind of arrangement that. What am I going to wear when I wake up tomorrow morning? I don't care. It's whatever I grab first at this particular moment. If I was someone that was going into the office every day, again, you know what? I really didn't care. What I had switched was all of my shirts, for the most part, when I was going, were white shirts, because I could grab any suit, that white shirt, and any tie. And the only decision I have to make is, should I wear brown or black shoes? That was it. Like, I was minimizing those inconsequential actions I needed to take so that I could focus on the ones that were going to be bigger decisions.
Yeah, see, and I think there's a hidden thing there, maybe, that we lie to ourselves that decisions are of different sizes. That's not it. I think what's of different size is the cost of the context switching. And so if I'm putting undue energy into what am I eating tonight, the price to context switch from something that's actually important and requires cognition and focus, and then back and forth, that's where the burden comes from. It's not the decision itself. Decisions are just decisions. You choose to do something, you choose not to.
Absolutely. And this is what happens when, here's a big reason why I believe people get stressed out. One, they allowed too many decisions to pile up and they've become overloaded. Two, they were overly relying on their strengths, and then because of their blind spots. And then, the third one is they failed to plan accordingly. And therefore, by waiting for the last minute, because something's going to go wrong. Like, when you wait till the last minute, chances are something is going to go wrong. Setting up for the show. I was down here, setting up way earlier. I did a test because I was really concerned about the actual sound. And I, silly me, clicked the wrong button because I didn't want to update my Logic Capture software. And it took me a little bit more than a minute to get everything redeployed the way I wanted. And now here we are. But if I had waited until exactly the time that we were scheduling to do this, it would have been
starting right now.
Yeah.
Well, this is another reason why you and I have talked about this offline, like when we were in person. This is a big reason why, for me, why I choose to work almost every day of the week till at least lunchtime. Because the way I buffer my decisions, it's way less stressful for me to have 7 days in the week to execute the total set of decisions than it is to try and pack it into 5. And the result is my life's significantly better. And all it costs me is 2 mornings. And so for reference, just so everybody understands, because I get up so fucking early, lunchtime for me is usually no later than 11 a.m. Well, most people are barely getting up. But I've already worked out, done all my personal work that I want to achieve that's for me, and I've probably done some light decision making for all the other shit I have to take care of. And I've had all my coffee for the day, and now the rest of the day is free.
Absolutely. And I have been training myself over the past several weeks without an alarm clock is the big key. Alarm clocks are the devil. Like, they, like, why would you want to be woken up in a panic? I just, I do set an alarm. The alarm is set for the latest I ever want to get up. But I've been going to myself because I've been doing a lot more recording of shows, and I do them at like 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. Mm-hmm. So I'm getting them done. I'm preparing for them, the night before. So that way I've got an outline, I've got everything set up. I've got, when I have you on and TK and other guests, I got to worry about the laptops. I can switch cameras, but I've got, my speaking notes right here. I get them actually out a little bit further to kind of give me an outline. And it's just like, it's like 3 bullets, because my solo shows, I'm keeping under 30 minutes. It's 30 minutes is just speaking.
It's a long fucking time, dude.
It's tough. I gotta tell you, man, it's tough. But I'm having fun with it, and so I just I keep on keeping on. But that's also when, like, the big thing, like I'm really, really hoping to get this nailed down sooner rather than later, because it is just it's kind of killing me at the moment. It's like as soon as I start to get like one more step closer in jiu-jitsu, I get another injury. Like right now, did something in my hip, working on different sweeps, and I'm like so I was like, oh, I think I'm feeling better. Went first thing this morning, went to roll, first roll, pushed off, and I'm like, oh, all right, I'm done, I'm out. I'm like, all right, I'm just not gonna roll for a bit. Like, as much as I love it, and it's so hard when you love something and it's like, all right, I want to keep going back in. I want to go back in. But I want to get it to a point to where I can get things into such a routine where I'm not having to stress myself with an alarm clock, where I can get up around 4:15, 4:30, record a show at least twice a week. And on those days that I'm not, I can get 2 sessions of jiu-jitsu in before most people have even woken up.
Yeah, man.
Because I can get that, those 2 sessions that are like, I'm back home before people are waking up.
I think there's a lot to be said for orienting the most important things to you as a person for your personal development first and foremost. And look, it's selfish. Yeah, of course it is. I mean, how do you make progress without being a little selfish? But come on, man. I'm talking, my earliest is 4:30 on Tuesdays when I get up and race. I usually get up around 5:30. Not that big of a difference, but it's a difference. And, Mrs. Pittman and baby Pittman wake up somewhere between 8 and 9, usually closer to 8. But even, think about the math, people. Think about the math. I do that every day. And so that's a part-time job a week that I've gained by over years, just training myself and making the decision. If I want to make personal progress, that's how I'm going to fit it in. And then the bulk of the day, you're talking at 20 hours a day, is devoted to everything else.
Well, are you saying you only get 4 hours of sleep?
Well, no, I'm including sleep in everything.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm like, wait a minute. That's going to catch up with you at some point.
No.
I've had to do that. 4 hours, not good. But this is why I've spent a tremendous amount of time since COVID. Like, you remember when I got that Oura Ring? I'm on the next version of the Oura Ring, which got all these other stats, which I love. In the event I ever get to a point where, I don't know, I'm either the CEO of some Fortune 500 company or my company's big enough, every single employee is getting one of those things. And I want them to focus on being healthy. I absolutely be healthy. I want your energy positive when you're at home, so you're bringing positive energy into the workplace. I know it will work. People probably don't get truly enough rest. But I'd be giving that out to, every single person. I think it would be a tremendous benefit, because now I've been able to play around with some things. Like, I know I need to have it cold when I'm sleeping, because I am restless. I move around a lot. So when it's super cold, I could put a weighted blanket on me. Right. So that I'm not hot. Now, all of a sudden, I've been doing that. my sleep scores that they wind up giving are in the 90s. Like I am like having, no, I'm not getting more than 7 hours of sleep, but I'm getting a good 7 hours. So for me to get, like before, I was getting like 2.5 to 3 hours of good sleep. Now it's 7.
Yeah.
Now when I wake up, I'm ready to go.
Well, see, and I think this is part of the bro hustle culture that's bad. Is it's this obsession with not sleeping more than X hours. No, bro, you should understand what you need as a person and prioritize getting that. I don't use alarm clocks. We've talked about it before. I've rarely had to use one for any reason, and I get as much sleep as my body wants. Of course, there's mornings where I get up, I wake up, and I'm like, yeah, not today, dude. I'm going back to sleep.
Nothing wrong with that.
No, man.
Pay
I
attention
just,
to your energy.
right. I just happen to get up when I get up more often than not, like way more often than not. But that's because I take care of things. For me, if I forced myself to sleep in, one, I don't even know if I could do it, to be honest with you. But if I did, sometimes it happens. Um, the stress of getting another hour or two of sleep and being behind on the things I want to get done is way more than if I had just gotten up. And I'll be honest with you, man. The hormone replacement therapy I'm on has 100% eliminated all of the bullshit with being fatigued and tired.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I'm looking, I only got like a few more pounds, and then I'm going to get my blood levels checked
Hmm.
and see if whether or not I need to do that again. I'll go back to that routine, but I was like, hey, I was 220 pounds down to 185. I want to be at 180. Once I get to 180, I'm going to get all my blood levels rechecked, and
Yeah,
and then because I'm like, all right, that's 40 pounds, 40
it's
pounds,
significant, man.
and all this muscle.
Look at that. Yeah.
So
I just got my second blood test back after 90 days,
yeah,
and I went from a total, not free, total of my first test was 181, and now I'm up to like 420.
that's awesome.
So I'm into the normal range. I'm on the lower side. Uh, I have my appointment in 2 weeks, and I'm gonna ask. Well, there's a couple things that have happened that I don't want to talk about publicly. I'll talk about them offline. It's not a big deal. I just don't want to talk about it. That I want to find out, like, what would happen if I doubled my dose? Like, would this happen again? But well, no, fuck it. I'll talk about it. What do I care? Libido. So I've never had a libido problem, like ever. But with testosterone, of course, now it's like through the roof, and that's not healthy. And God forbid if I doubled my dose to maximize all the other effects, that would double. Oh Jesus Christ, dude! I would never get any work done. I'd be a horny teenager again.
Well, that's kind of the point. I mean, in a way,
Yeah,
like but
right.
it definitely does those things, and so the idea is, just from I don't know which doctor you're using um, over there or not, but the one that I had was like, look, you want to be like, while it matters where you're at in terms of that total and free testosterone, it's also just as it doesn't matter. It's
Right.
how are you feeling, right? Some
Yeah.
people need to be on the higher range to feel good. Other people can be in the lower range in terms of what's considered
Yeah.
norm, right?
Well, so,
You don't want to be you don't want to be out of the norm on the high side or on the low side.
right. Well, see, and the reason why I want to ask the doctor about doubling the dose is because, in addition to the libido, the other thing I've noticed is um, I have pulsing. And so like I inject on Friday afternoons at the almost the exact same time every fucking time, and I write it down every time. Um, but that takes a few days to kick in, right? And in the few days that it takes to kick in, I notice like a slump off. And so I wonder, oh, if I up the dose a little bit, will that wash those pulse waves out?
Yeah, that I don't know. I don't know if it's like a time release type thing. I'm not really.
It is because of the
Uh,
way you're injecting it. If it was intramuscular, you wouldn't have that so much. But because it's subcutaneous, it takes a while for it to go down into your bloodstream. But I don't know that a higher dose would take care of it. And B, even if it would, because of my libido issue being so fucking high, I don't know that it's worth it.
Yeah, I don't know. They may break up your dose into multiple injections in the week.
See, that's the other potential. But to our point about blind spots, I have this blind spot. I know it's there. I'm not a medical physician, but that's why you get a mentor or a guide,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you're honest with them. You tell them what's going on. You ask good informed questions, and you take the information back. And you think about it, and then you make a decision.
Well, and that's why you need coaches, mentors, people with diversity of thought, those experts you can go to. And then while we're still have the intelligence to be able to assimilate the information, like if the doctor was telling you something and it didn't sound right and you go and do a little bit of research, because we do know how to research, like, well, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. Well, maybe I'm going to go get another medical professional's opinion, because if they're both saying the same thing, well, then at least then I can ask questions. But I found this true research, not some thing on off of Wikipedia, which has its place, but it's typically not peer-reviewed, research. You can go, hey, can you explain why this is going? Because then they can tell you the nuances of, okay, well, this is what was really going on here because they did blah blah blah, and you don't fit that profile. Okay, fair enough, right? We don't know. That's not what we study, but that's extremely important for people. And actually, I think it's. I don't know why we're not teaching this in schools. I mean, honestly, I don't know about for you, but for my undergrad, my master's, they didn't teach real research. Now, for my MBA, we were shown how to use the library, what's research, what's not. So they definitely did, but it wasn't really until the doctorate where they like, oh, this is what's research.
But no, that's my experience too. But in reflecting back on it, man, we learn the basic principles of how to do this. Like, I'm gonna say in high school, but it's really middle school or junior high. Because it's the basic scientific method, which we all get taught in basic physical science. Um, sure as fucking biology, but we aren't shown how to situate it in our daily real world life. We're taught how to do it when you just have to do the experiment that you're supposed to do to get a grade. And that's really the failing of that educational system as I see it. And it's really, I'm going to go on a limb and say it's the root of its corruption. Is you oriented toward these metrics? Well, dude, what happens in a call center when my metric is how many tickets I close? Guess what happens? Fuckers just start opening and closing tickets. That's what happens.
Yeah.
That's what happens with grades.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. It got disconnected, so I closed the ticket.
That's right. Like, oh my god, man, I love it. I love human beings. Dude.
They called it. It was a password reset. All of a sudden, the ticket just became a password reset. That's why it only took me 30 seconds. All right, cool.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I love people, dude. I love people.
And this is, it's one of those things that, I got this saying, but it's absolutely true from the movie The Italian Job. I don't know if you ever saw that or not. All right.
Yeah,
so, yeah, I trust everyone, just not the devil inside them.
Yeah.
Because we all have it. There's always going to be a point where one bad day can turn us into the Joker. That's all it takes. You don't know. You just don't know what that bad day is.
It's amazing how catastrophic one bad decision could become. Mm-hmm. Some bad decisions are severe enough that that's it. Make 2 medium bad decisions, you're definitely on the slope down. Make 3 or 4 bad decisions consecutively, you're probably fucked.
Yeah, and that can happen. And
easily.
It can happen fast.
Yeah, man.
So
that's why you have to be aware of those blind spots, because there's definitely a set that exists that if you're not aware of them and they happen, you're not prepared for it, and there's no preparedness for it. You just have to have this idea that it's possible. It's like Mrs. Pittman and I started watching the Medici TV show. Really good, dude. Because we're into Ren Fair and we're thinking about our costumes for next Ren Fair, and we're like, well, let's go watch a Ren Fair show, Renaissance, and see what's up. And of course, there's all this intrigue. No spoiler alerts, but of course, there's adultery because that makes for good entertainment. Apparently, okay, that's a separate conversation. And she turns to me and she says, well, if you were him, would you do that? And I said, listen, baby, you're asking the wrong question. The right question is, would I allow myself to be in the position to do that? And the answer is fuck no. Don't ask me if I would do it. That's the wrong question. The question is, would I ever allow myself to be in that position? Because if I'm not, there's no blind spot.
Right. The best way to not fall victim to that particular thing is to not be there. If you're not in the place to fall for temptation, then you aren't tempted, right? Yeah. So it's quite easy. You want to, I just sit there and go back, like when I would say to my, young engineers and analysts, we'd be out at a conference or when we were working for vendors and we have to go to a customer visit. It's quite simple. We go to dinner, have your nightcap, go back to your room.
Yep.
Now, you're a single person, you go do whatever you want, right? But if you aren't, I strongly suggest you remove the probability of being tempted by just going back to your room. My biggest temptation is, when I would go on travel is there a hot tub and whether or not I should bring glass down there or not. Because sometimes, the beer bottle or the wine bottle is glass, and like that's all I got is glass. I go over, I pour it into the plastic cup, but it's still glass.
Hey, for better or worse, man, sometimes the most exciting part for me for travel when I'm staying in a hotel is where do I buy the best beer I can buy so I can go back in my room and get more work done. I just want to be left alone.
Yeah. And for me, it's just, I want to be in that hot tub relaxing. That's my, at night, I do not want to really do, and which is why I enjoy getting up early. At night, I want to shut down. I want to be done. And to me, that hot tub or, especially like the perfect ones are the ones that, which is why I love to stay at like Marriott resorts because they always have a steam room. Oh, that's the best part when I have that steam room.
Yeah. No, I enjoy it. I like steam rooms. That's it's enjoyable, man. I like it.
Yeah. The only unfortunate part is typically in there, I'm not really looking to bring, alcohol inside the steam room. I don't really like warm alcohol. It just doesn't appeal.
Yeah, maybe I'm on because I don't like having alcohol when I'm hot.
Well, yeah, sure. The hot tub doesn't bother me. It's a little bit different, but I'm also,
it is because your body acclimates to it because it's water.
Right, and it's not 170 degrees. It's somewhere between 100 and 104, depending on where you're at. That's like a bath. It's a bath with the jets.
Like I don't like drinking a beer when I'm mowing the lawn.
Oh yeah.
No. I'll do it on the beach, but if I'm on the beach, I'm usually under an umbrella anyway.
Well, yeah, and if I'm on a beach, I'm actually almost always, I'm just not drinking a beer. That's just
right.
That's just when I drink a beer, it's because I'm having wings, and it's typically Guinness. Like actually could be any stout because stout just has it's more barley, and barley's got a lower gluten content than wheat.
Oh, that reminds me. I'll leave you with this talking about Blindspot. So, the hormone replacement, My Garmin, Your Aura Ring. A friend turned me on to a company called DNA Fit. And what they do is a DNA analysis. They break down your genetic markers and then they spit out how to optimize your health around your genetic markers specifically for fitness. And so they look for things like whether or not you have a gluten sensitivity is one thing, but based on certain genetic markers, you might have a predisposition to better process certain types of carbs compared to others to fuel, like glycogen chains and shit like that. And I actually need to send those people an email because it's been a while since I sent that kit in, and I've seen somebody's results, the report. It's really thorough.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's very. I don't know if you ever looked at Rhonda Patrick's sites. Her stuff does. I don't know if it goes into that detail. I don't recall it, but they definitely had all those markers. But not. I don't know about the fitness piece. She's been updating it, so I keep getting all these alerts to go back in there. So who knows? Because I mean, I feel like at this point, almost all of them wind up sharing the algorithms or the genetic markers that they wind up finding. I don't
There's
know.
only a few labs that do that work.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll let you know. I'll let the audience know what the results are. I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, my friend. Well, as always, it's a good show. I think hopefully we got some people to understand a little bit more about how you can turn your blind spots into strengths.
I hope so too. And if people have questions, well, I mean, it's your show, but I'll
Hey,
answer comments any day of the week.
hey, they know how to add us. They know where we're at.
Right.
All right, my friend. You have a great day.
You too. Cheers. Take care, everybody.
Hey, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the show. Please like it. Please subscribe. If you have any comments, please leave them in there. My guests and I are very interactive. Well, we want to be better, and hopefully, you got something out of this. Until next time, take care. Thank you.